Hello, English 11 students, and welcome to the Quarter 2, Week 2, Day 2 video. This video is designed for those students who are absent from our live Zoom class. Remember that everything you say, do, or type is recorded, so keep it school appropriate. And as always, there is no saving, downloading, or taking pictures of our class today or ever. Our agenda for today. You are going to choose one text to work with for this week, either the well-read Black Girl, the Nickel Boys, or Girl in Translation. Then you're going to read an excerpt from that text and answer some questions. Just as a heads up, these texts, you're picking one to work with this week, but if you decide that you want to switch it up next week and try a different text, that's totally fine. Or you can do all three excerpts over the next couple of weeks, from one text. That is completely up to you, and you can make that decision or choice as we go through the second quarter. Congratulations goes out to those students who are on their way to working towards an exemption for week 3's assignment. Those names will be displayed during our live Zoom class. Let's get started. So on the English 11 homepage, when you click on this week's dates, under week 2, day 2, you'll find the following assignments listed. The well-read Black Girl excerpt, 1 of 3, the Nickel Boys excerpt, 1 of 3, and the Girl in Translation excerpt, 1 of 3. I just want you to find those first. Before you select which text and excerpt you want to work with, please review the information you see on the screen here about the trigger warnings that we discussed earlier in the week. I want you to make sure that you're selecting a text that you know you will be comfortable reading. So as a trigger warning, Well-Read Black Girl contains domestic violence, sexuality, and LGBTQ themes, illness leading to death, gentrification, and the threat of eviction. The Nickel Boys contains violence resulting in death, racial slurs, parental abandonment, sexual references, and sexual violence, specifically references to sexual male-on-male abuse. And Girl in Translation contains abject poverty, child labor, sexual references, racial slurs, unexpected pregnancy, and dysfunctional family dynamics. If one of those things upsets you, do not select that text. Select a different text instead. At this time, you can go ahead and select whichever excerpt makes the most sense to you and given your comfortability. All right, let's talk about the setup of your excerpt. And I'm just using this one from Well-Read Black Girl as an example. They all look the same, okay? So the excerpts are all on the left-hand side, and your questions and a spot for your answer is on the right-hand side. And every excerpt has 5 questions. They all follow a pattern, which I'm going to go over with you in a minute. As a tip, right, instead of reading the excerpt yourself, if you want to, you can have the computer read to you using Google Read and Write. Or in breakout rooms, the teacher kind of read the excerpt if that's what people said. But since you're doing this outside of class time, you can use Google Read and Write to have it read to you that way. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of your excerpt, you'll also see that I've included a sample of how the question should be answered when you click on the hyperlink. In my sample, I used an excerpt from Between the World and Me, that text that we read at the beginning of the year as my example. So let's take a look at that now. If you remember on the left-hand side, this was the scene where the author talks about how a boy pulled a gun on him and how he was kind of shaken by that experience, etc. And then on the right-hand side, you see that I've made it look exactly like the excerpts that you're going to be working on this week. So if you look at the first question, it says, consider how the author describes the boy in bold, right? Every description of the boy has been bolded for you in the text, so it's easy for you to find. List 2 adjectives you would use to describe the boy, and what quotes would you use to support your answers? Adjectives are words that describe nouns, right? Words that describe people, places, or things. So for example, a tall boy, tall is the adjective. A curious girl, curious is the adjective. So my answer to this question, if you read along with me, right, is I would describe the boy as angry. That's my adjective. Because it says the author could see in the boy's eyes, quote, a surging rage that could in an instant erase my body. I would also describe the boy as confident, my second adjective, because the author says, quote, he had let it be known how easily I could be selected. Okay, so you want to make your answers look similar. Select 2 adjectives and use quotes to back them up. Question number 2. It says, explain why the author doesn't tell his teachers or parents about what happened. Right? And my answer to that question is that the author doesn't want to admit that the boy with the gun scared him. So he doesn't tell anyone, and he's prepared to lie and say it excited him if anyone were to ask. Question number 3. It says, the author says, quote, that year I felt myself to be drowning in the news reports of murder. Explain the author's use of hyperbole. What is the author exaggerating, and what does he actually mean by this phrase? So let's back up for a second. First, to make finding this quote easier for you in the passage, you see it's in blue in the question and it's in blue in the passage. Second, if you don't know a word like the word hyperbole, right, you can either right-click or two-finger click if you're on a Chromebook, and you'll get a pop-up menu that looks like this. If you click on the spot that says define hyperbole, the definition will pop up on the right-hand side of your screen, and that may help you understand some of these questions better. So my answer to that question is the author is exaggerating the amount of news reports about shootings. He can't actually drown in them. He means that there were a lot of news reports about shootings, and they made him feel like his life was in danger, like when someone is drowning. Question 4. What does the author mean when he writes, quote, I knew this in theory, but could not understand it as fact until the boy with the small eyes stood across from me, holding my entire body in his small hands. Okay, notice again that this time the quote was in purple, and so I made it match in purple in the text as well, so you could find it in there easily. So my answer. He means he has seen news reports about shootings on TV, but this is the first time he has been in this kind of situation in real life. Okay. Then the last question, question number 5. This one looks the exact same way in every single excerpt, no matter what excerpt you choose. And the question is, what is one phrase or sentence within this excerpt that you find either powerful, persuasive, or beautiful, and why? Copy and paste the quote and then give your answer. So my answer here, right? So I think a powerful sentence in the excerpt is when it says, quote, there the boy stood with the gun brandished, which he slowly untucked, tucked, then untucked once more, and in his small eyes I saw a surging rage that could in an instant erase my body. I think this sentence is powerful because the description of the boy tucking and untucking the gun in his pants makes me feel anxious. It builds suspense, and I want to know what happens next. That is powerful because it compels readers to keep reading the text and to finish it because they want to know what happens. You would do the same for your excerpt. You don't do all 3, you pick one of those 3 to write about, right? Something that you thought was powerful, something you thought was persuasive, right? That would change somebody's mind about something, or something that you thought was beautiful, and why. In class, we went into breakout rooms, but you're going to do this individually, right? And again, as a tip, while you're working through, your excerpt, you can use Google Read and Write to have the computer read the excerpt to you. And again, just like you saw in those samples, right? The 5 questions look the same way, right? I've put the adjectives questions, right, are in bold. You've got blue quotes, purple quotes, etc., and a spot for your answers. And it looks the exact same way no matter which text you selected for this week. And that's it. Once you've read through the excerpt and answered all 5 of those questions, make sure that you turn that in before the deadline, which is 3 p.m. on Saturday. And if you need any help, you can attend student support from 2:45 to 3:15 on Thursday or Friday. And if I could even read the excerpt to you if that's what you would like us to do during that time. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in class soon.